We're live?
I think we're live. Let's do the intro.
All right. Welcome to the Critical Christian Podcast. We're your hosts, Dan.
And Justin. We ask critical questions about the Bible and provide questionable answers. And today we're going to be in Exodus 22. Are you excited, Dan?
Well, let me just say this. For all who are watching, if you have insomnia, this might be your cure for it. Just saying.
This very well could be the trick. This could be the thing that gets you to sleep finally.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong.
That's what I told my wife, actually.
Did she agree?
She says she's still not watching it. All right.
Man, that's cold. That's some cold. You guys are married, right?
Yes, we are.
That's some cold stuff.
Mm.
Now that we're live, I have to adjust your mic filter because you moved closer to me, and now your mic is picking up my voice.
Oh, I can move further away.
Hold on. All right, I think it's better now. It's not picking me up. Make sure that you can talk into mic and it picks you up.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Cool. I think we're good to go. So Exodus 22.
All right, welcome to the Critical... Oh.
I don't know. You know we're live, right?
Oh, all right.
I don't know why you do that.
All right.
All right, yeah. 22. Okay, we got lots of laws. This is the most exciting part of the Bible. I know this is the part that everybody reads. You like skip over the fun stuff like the angels mating with women and the flood and whatnot just to get to the laws.
I know you do.
So we're finally here.
Right?
They're fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening. Well, let's jump right into the very first law in Exodus 21. Go ahead, Dan.
Exodus 22.
20, yeah, exactly. Listen to what I mean, not what I say, remember? Carry on.
If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. It's a bit excessive, right? I mean, I've heard of punitive damages, but 5 times. Also, apparently, sheep are just not worth as much as oxen. Quite a society of silly billies, isn't it?
Well, I mean, one is kind of a money maker, right? Like the oxen does your work for you.
What? No, the sheep aren't money makers. They make wool and you put that on and sell it or something.
True, but I mean, sheep are small. They probably fetch a much lower price than an actual oxen. Oxen, it's like the difference between like a tractor and a lawnmower. Okay. I mean, both of them are good for something, right? I just the oxen is more of a.
Why do you have to give them back 5?
It's actually a good question. It says if the thief shall pay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. Wonder how they came up with the number 5 and 4.
Right.
That is kind of a weird stipulation.
I mean, it almost feels like this is one of those things where they're just like, so don't steal because this is what it's going to happen to you. But then, of course, when it actually happens,
Sure.
they're probably just like, here, take it back. Here's a sack full of gold.
For those who are around for Genesis, you'll catch that reference.
Yeah.
Unless you weren't making the reference.
I
thought you were making a joke.
I was.
But
is a good reference to. Why don't you tell them the reference
to the Joseph narrative when the guy got the gold stuffed in his sack and he wasn't expecting it?
That's right. That's the one I was making. All right.
So I did put a cross reference together for some of the laws that cross over to the Hammurabi laws.
Oh, okay.
So verses 1 through 3 don't show up in the Hammurabi law code, but when we get to the next couple law codes, we can see how it seems to be paralleling, even in the same order, what they found in the law code of Hammurabi. A lot of scholars have noted it seems to be that the narration of Exodus 21 and 22 is basically, it's just kind of modifying the Hammurabi law codes, which makes sense because Hammurabi put his law code out about 2000 BCE. So it was well already known by this time period.
That guy must have been pretty on the ball.
Well, maybe. I mean, he seems to think he was. If you read his law code, he's pretty proud about it.
Well, I imagine he should be. I don't know what they were doing before them, but I bet it was less just. right?
I don't think so.
What?
Have you read it?
No, of course not. I don't have to read things to know what they say.
Oh, stop it. Well, I've
Just
got
like a good Christian,
that is the key is to not read it.
I
So
feel.
I
That
do
is
have the
good.
law codes though. We'll start in 57 when we get to that point. So for everyone watching, I'm just gonna go to the Yale website. Yale's actually got it listed. And so 57 is the first one that shows up in Exodus 22. So when we get to that point in Exodus 22, verse 4, which is conveniently missing from the NRSV, we'll we'll address that.
No, that's why is it
No,
miss?
it's not. So they included it up here.
Oh,
There we go.
look at that. I believed you.
Okay, so
Okay.
bada bing, bada boom. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and he kills it or sells it, he shall pay 5 and or 4 for the stolen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they came up with those numbers. That must have sounded good to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's enough to deter them from doing it, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough from sounding ridiculous.
Sounds ridiculous to me. I mean,
Well,
two.
don't steal.
Two.
It's better than having your hand chopped off.
Well, probably else, but whatever. All right. Number 2.
Right, yeah. Number 2, let's have it.
If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt
Oh,
for him.
but yeah, so by the way, just to make sure we're very clear here,
Yeah.
in the NRSV, which is what I've got pulled up, this is the Catholic edition. I didn't mean to grab the Catholic edition, but it should read the same. Verse number 4 comes after verse number 1. It's ordered differently. Let me grab the non-Catholic
It
edition.
comes after number 1.
It's because the laws show up in a different order depending on what manuscript you're in. But there we go. In the NRSV, it's got the same order as what you've got here, so I think we're good to go. So law number 2.
Right, what a relief.
Right, if the thief is found breaking in and is struck dead,
Yeah.
no blood guilt is incurred. Cool, huh?
Yeah, well, this has actually happened before.
I would
Well,
imagine.
Thieves attempting to break in and getting seriously injured,
Sure.
suing the homeowner, and then winning. So not exactly the same.
Wait, when
but
did that happen?
all the time. Here's a quote.
Wait, you get to say that it happened?
I just did. All right.
Actually, I talked to a lawyer about this once.
Yeah.
And the lawyer said that is a classic a case that everybody knows about, but like your first day in law school, they tell you that it's not real.
Well, that's not true. Because listen, here's a quote from a random Quora user. It's just because it happened to be a burglar who got hurt doesn't change the fact that it was wrong to have unsafe conditions.
Did it cite when it actually happened in reality?
Whatever.
Because it never did. It's a scenario that is used in law school to demonstrate things. It's not something that ever happened in real life.
Well, I've heard about it, so.
A lot of people have heard about it. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean it was ever a real thing.
Yeah.
It's like the woman who spilled the coffee on her and everyone thinks that it was her own fault, but as
Yeah.
it turns out, it wasn't actually her fault.
Right.
It was like, like 300 degrees and like burnt her like all the way down, like all the way through her skin and like destroyed her muscle, and she had to pay like $200,000 worth of medical bills to have it fixed. Right?
But my point is, I'm sure it's happened at some point. All right.
I don't
Anyhow.
think it has though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what the law is suggesting here is that, listen, if somebody breaks into your house and you defend your domain, and because you're defending your domain, the guy dies.
Got to be master of your domain.
There's no blood guilt. Now, you and I have kind of talked a little bit about the blood guilt.
All the time.
You remember what blood guilt really is?
Of course. But one of you explain it.
I mean, blood guilt
Because-
essentially means if you kill somebody, you're going to get killed yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the sanctuary cities and all that stuff.
Yeah, if you...
So nobody's allowed to exact revenge.
Yeah, blood guilt is specifically when you kill somebody who is undeserving of being killed.
Oh, okay.
It is possible to have accidental blood guilt, then you could run to a sanctuary city. But in this case, if someone's breaking into your house and they die in the process,
But that sounds like accidental.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, if it happens,
But it seems like it should still have blood guilt then.
well, we're about to get there in verse 3.
Oh, okay.
We'll read verse 3 and then we'll talk about it.
All right. But if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his. So, I guess if you kill a thief in the daytime, you're in trouble. Not sure why that matters, but it's good to know if the sun is out, you better just let the thieves waltz right in.
No, I think what he's suggesting here.
No, I just told you what he suggested.
Well, I think what the text is suggesting here is that if somebody breaks into your household during the daytime,
Yeah.
you have more awareness of the situation, which means you can apprehend or injure or, do something with the individual without killing them. If it's at nighttime, it's much more difficult to do such a thing. You can't see what's happening. They don't have lights like we have lights. You're just in the dark. So if somebody dies during a scuffle in the middle of the dark night because they broke into your house, that's where they draw the line and say, well, don't break into people's houses in the night.
Do it in the daytime.
But during the daytime, it's expected that, you deal with it without murdering the individual.
And what if you still have to?
You mean have to?
What if you still have to?
Why would you have to?
Why wouldn't you? Why would you have to at night?
But why would you murder somebody for breaking into your house?
Why would you have to at night?
You wouldn't have to.
Well, apparently it's okay if you do, so therefore somebody had to.
Not that it's okay. It's just that you have less control over the situation when it's dark out. You can't even see what's happening. If somebody dies, it's presumed that it was an accidental death.
I mean, there's a moon.
Inside of your house?
Probably windows.
Why would you think they could see anything in the middle of the night in a dark house?
My guess
in the
is
desert?
that they're living in these like clay huts.
Actually, at the time this was written, they were living in tents.
Oh, I was going to say they have windows, but there's no glass in them. But now I don't know.
There's definitely no glass.
Do they have windows?
They have openings. They have like openings in the mud brick usually, which is really interesting because when you read the law, remember they don't have houses. Like they're not living in houses.
Yeah.
This law presumes that they're living in houses. Which means it couldn't have been given while they're in the desert.
Uh-oh.
It was clearly given after they're already in the promised land.
That's not good.
I know, right?
That's not good.
Yeah, so.
No, it's not good.
That's how all of the laws of Moses read.
I know, but I mean, isn't it a little disappointing?
A little bit.
A lot of it.
I get it. Yeah. But anyways, because breaking into a tent, I don't know if you could break into a tent. I get it. They talk about unlawful entry. You can
like a knife and
you can enter somebody's tent unlawfully. The long and short of it is, it's dark in there. You don't have lights.
Yeah.
And if you scuffle with somebody in the middle of the night, someone's bound to get hurt and they might get killed. And if that's the case, it's not your fault. But if it's during the daytime, they expect that you don't kill the guy.
Well, what if you still have to?
Again, name a scenario in which you would have to kill the guy.
Probably the same scenario as at night.
Not at night. If it's at night, it's an accident.
I know, but I'm just saying, why would you have to kill somebody at night?
You wouldn't have to. In neither scenario do you have to kill anybody.
What
I'm saying is, if it's night and you can't see anything, then it's much more likely that someone is going to be injured more severely by accident because no one can see what's going on.
All right. Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. This seems like, there are daytime robberies too,
Do you ever trip and fall or stub your toe at night when you get up to go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Do you do the same thing during the daylight?
Less so.
Oh, there you go. It's almost like being dark out inhibits your ability to coordinate.
All right, fine. It's just, what if these thieves are dangerous,
Well, what if they're dangerous and you do what you have to do to defend yourself?
There you go. So sometimes you'd have to kill a thief in the daytime.
There are occasions where you have to defend yourself.
All right, so
there are laws. If you're attacked by an individual and you defend yourself, you're allowed to do that. This is talking about robbery. Someone breaks into your house to rob it.
Okay, so
this is what happens.
Can I agree to disagree then?
No, if someone attempts to take your life, you're allowed to defend yourself.
Okay, then I agree.
This is about robbery, not about murder.
Well, yeah.
Murder if you kill a robber.
Right.
But it's presumed here that just because somebody breaks into your house, it doesn't mean that they're trying to kill you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I guess nowadays it's different.
Right.
Or maybe it's not, and I just watch too many movies.
Actually, I think it's roughly the same. Like 99% of people that breaking in your house don't want to kill you. They just want to steal your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why you can't just kill people for walking into your house and taking your stuff.
Unless they're black. All right.
Well, yeah. You're not too far off.
I'm not.
All right, so let's read verse 3.
Okay. I just did. But if the sun has risen.
You read verse 2.
No, okay. 3, but if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him.
Wait, how is your verse different than mine? I switched to the verse. What? Why do you have a different translation every week? Just tell me what you're using.
Pretty sure this is the right one.
It's literally not.
It was like the ESV or something. I don't know.
We have literally never read from the ESV once.
Well, then it's probably something else.
I wish you would just pick one and stick with it.
You know what? I'd love to just text you and say, hey, what version are we using?
Just write it down in your notes.
But I have a feeling you'll never give me the answer.
We're literally never going to read the same version. You're always going to be reading from a different version than me.
Fine. What's the version?
I don't know. What do you write it down?
No, what's your version?
I told you every single week for the last 5 weeks that we're reading from the NRSV.
NRSV.
And for the last 4 weeks, you've read from the NABRE.
That's pretty close.
Which is why just now I pulled open the NABRE, and it doesn't actually match what you have here. So now I don't even know what you're reading from.
Well, maybe it's the NRSV then. NRSV. Okay, I saved it now. All
right, so I'm going to go back to the NRSV. Not going to match, but that's what we got.
Looks like it does.
It doesn't.
Well, then which one did I use?
I have no idea what you used.
All right, whatever.
Okay, well, we're supposed to be reading verse 4.
All right.
In your version, you already read verse 3, so let's go to verse 4. It talks about the animals.
All right. If the stolen beast is found alive in his possession, whether it is an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. Does that make sense? I mean, if you can return the actual item stolen, you only have to pay double on restitution. But if it's dead, it's 5 times the payment.
Yeah, you quoted from the ESV this week. I don't know why you can't just pick one.
No, it's just because, there's so many different ones. And all these different acronyms and...
I don't care what you read from. Just write it down on your notes next time so we're using the same thing.
All right, I think we should both use the Message.
Well, you'll never see me using the Message ever in my life.
So you do care. You do care what version.
Or I mean an actual Bible translation, not a piece of trash.
Well,
I don't even know if I'd start a fire with the Message. That thing is just throw it in the sewer immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you're wrong to feel that way. But that's okay. All right. What's next?
Sorry, I forgot. We were talking about verse 4. When the animal, whether ox or donkey or sheep, is found alive in the thief's possession, then they'll pay double. So that does make sense because obviously if they get the animal back, it's partial restitution.
Yeah. But if it's dead, you get 5 times as much. Even though you should probably just get 2 of them.
So here's the thing. If somebody steals an ox, it says the restitution, the thief will pay double. Okay, so if you steal 1 ox and you don't give the ox back, you got to pay 5 oxes. If you steal an ox, but the ox is still alive, then they get their ox back, and then they get 1 or 2 more oxes on top of that. Is it an additional 1 ox on top of that?
I think it's just the 1.
Well, the 1 plus 1.
Right, so 2.
So theoretically, you're better off if you don't get your original ox back. You're better off if the ox is already dead, because then you get 5 oxen.
Right.
It's kind of weird how they worded it. You know what I mean?
Makes you want to kind of entice somebody to steal yours, and then go at night and kill or something.
You could rig it, yeah. It'd be like an insurance scam.
Yeah, that's right.
Have someone come steal your ox. Well, somebody has to pay it out. You'd have to frame somebody.
Well, maybe just like the rich guy.
Yeah, I'm saying you got to frame somebody. Find a rich guy, frame them.
Right.
Make sure they find your dead ox on his property.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get 5 of them.
Yeah.
I bet that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
People have been looking for ways to like cheat the system.
Ever
Like
since there was a system.
exactly, ever since there was a system, people were cheating the system.
Mhm.
I think that's why the law code in the Bible has to keep growing. It keeps getting bigger and bigger with successive generations.
Oh, the more people find loopholes and all that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, people suck, all right.
Or they might want to change a thing here or there, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to change a law code when it comes from God, so you just have to keep saying Moses did it.
Yeah.
Because you can't say God changed his mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, some people do. The Mormons do that.
Well, Mormons are. I mean, nowadays Christians aren't Christians, but Mormons were never Christians.
Don't tell that to the Mormons.
It's just a cult,
Don't tell that to the Mormons.
I'm sure they would agree.
They would not agree.
No, they should.
The Mormons think they're Christians.
Nobody else does. Actually, a lot of people think they are because they're.
Well, the Christians think they're Jews.
What? Christians think they're Jewish?
Yeah. You don't realize it, but you do.
That doesn't make any sense, but that's fine.
You're the spiritual children of Abraham. You're circumcised in the heart. You're the spiritual children of Abraham. Makes you a spiritual Hebrew.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's.
You're grafted in, according to Paul. Paul says you've been grafted into the vine of the Jews. I mean, you're part of the Jewish heritage now, just, spiritually.
Well, number one, that doesn't count. And number two, what Paul says doesn't count. And number three, I think it was Matthew that was really saying that, right? He was trying to give the message to us non-Jewish people. So if anything, we should be
Matthew didn't do that.
Mark did. Luke.
Maybe Luke.
I got it.
Luke has got a pretty Gentile.
One of them, pretty sure was Matthew, was written for the Gentiles, right?
That was not Matthew. Matthew was written for the Jew.
Well, maybe it was Mark then.
Well, Mark seemed kind of generic. I don't know if he was targeting Jews or
Then it was
Gentiles.
Luke or John or Acts or Romans.
That's the funny thing is John kind of seems as though he's targeting Jews, but he keeps having to explain things about Jewish customs that you wouldn't have to explain to a Jew. It's almost like it was written for a non-Jew. And he keeps referring to the Jews, like the Jews did this, the Jews did that, which would lead you to believe that maybe it wasn't written by an actual Jew, or at least wasn't targeting the Jews.
Well, I'm just saying, whoever job it was to spread the word of Christianity beyond just the Jews, that would be who were the spiritual children of or whatever.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Gospels, I don't think they have this Pauline language about the Gentiles being grafted into Israel. It seems to be more of a Pauline thing. I think the Gospels, if you get rid of Paul, the Gospels seem to be promoting almost like a replacement theory, especially in Luke. There seems to be this idea that the original people of God have essentially rejected him. And because they've rejected God, God is now opening the doors to everybody. That seems to be kind of the message of Luke. And you catch a smidgen of it elsewhere in the Gospels. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if you get rid of Paul, I don't know if you have the same level of Christians are actually spiritual Jews. I mean, there's definitely some in there.
And they love quoting Paul, though.
The Gospels do talk about being spiritual children of Abraham. But I don't know if they really, I don't think they're saying it in the same way Paul is using it. I think Paul's kind of taking it to a new level because Paul is trying to find a way to, I don't think Paul was into replacement theory. I think Paul's trying to find a way to unify the Gentiles and the Jews into one family.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyways, all that being said, I forgot where we're at here. We're at verse 5.
I mean, just opening it up to everyone doesn't mean they're excluding the Jews.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah.
They're just including everyone now.
Right. Sure.
All right.
Right. Verse 5.
If a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed over, or lets his beast loose and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and his own vineyard.
That makes sense. It seems that they left the restitution open a little bit.
Yeah, there's nothing to say. I mean, okay, that makes sense. It's not like 5 times as much or anything.
Right. We've got some interesting restitution in the Law Code of Hammurabi.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to 57, which is where we get like similar laws, says if a shepherd, without the permission of the owner of the field and without the knowledge of the owner of the sheep, lets the sheep into a field to graze, then the owner of the field shall harvest the crop, and the shepherd who had pastured his flock there without permission of the owner of the field shall pay the owner 20 gur of corn for every 10 gan, which I don't know what those
Okay.
measurements are, but this handy website from Yale actually does have a glossary of the words, and apparently they didn't include those two, so that's
Helpful.
a
Yeah.
lot of not so much help. Anyways, the long and short of it is they actually give monetary values for the restitution in the Hammurabi law codes. We didn't get a monetary value here.
Mm.
So it might be just up to the discretion of the judge. Maybe.
Yeah. Or the guy whose field got grazed.
Right. Yeah.
Like what'll make you happy.
True. How do I pay you off?
Right, yeah. How it always works.
Right. Let's do number 6.
If the fire breaks out, or if fire breaks out and catches in thorns, so that the stacked grain or the standing grain or the field is consumed, he who started the fire shall make full restitution. I mean, that's fine. That makes sense.
Seems like a 1-for-1.
Yeah, actually, it does, right?
It does. Yeah.
So probably paying back 5 times as much wouldn't be fair, because then they'd be going hungry or something, right?
Well, plus remember, like if a whole field, of standing grain gets burned down, I mean, depending on the size of the farm, that could have fed hundreds of people, right?
So that very well could, whoever did it could die if they have to give all their food to them, right?
Yeah, they could very well end up so impoverished that they have to sell their entire estate and then become someone's slave.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That would be that'd be a pretty hefty fine.
And this is clearly accidental.
It seems that way.
I don't know. That doesn't seem right.
Right.
I mean, I understand, the other person has been wronged, but, accidents do happen. So I don't know. This also seems like like if what, and then what, and what, and what, and if happens. It's like, how often did that happen,
Yeah, we talked about this in our last episode with the oxen falling in a ditch or
Yeah,
pit,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Some of these laws are really interesting because you're like, you have to wonder how common it could have been. Because think about this: when they're giving these laws, they're in the desert. Theoretically, according to the narrative, they're in the desert at like Mount Sinai. No fields of grain out there, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
Theoretically, this would have been applicable not for like another at least 40, 50, or 60 years.
Was it really just all sand?
I mean, mostly. There's some places to graze in the foothills around the mountain.
Okay. First, I imagine nobody was owning it at that point, right?
Well,
the Jews, I mean, right?
People were there. The Jews weren't there.
I know, but it looks as though, well, this is talking about, if you own a thing and the other person owns a thing and your fire gets onto theirs or whatever, which I guess would never happen while they're wandering, right?
Right, that's my point, is like it doesn't seem like this could really apply at the time it's given. It wouldn't be able to apply until after they start taking over parts of the promised land that had, pasture fields.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, it seems merciful to the one who set the fire, if I would describe it in one way.
Yeah. I mean, there's no punitive damages.
Right. Let's do 7, 8, and 9.
If a man gives to his neighbor money or goods to keep safe, and it is stolen from the man's house, then, if the thief is found, he shall pay double. If the thief is not found, the owner of the house shall come near to God to show whether or not he has put his hand to his neighbor's property. For every breach of trust, whether it is for an ox, for a donkey, for a sheep, for a cloak, or for any kind of lost thing, of which one says this is it, the case of both parties shall come before God. The one whom God condemns shall pay double. Neighbor. They probably could have just done this for everything.
Yes.
Just go to God. I mean, right? I mean, I know God has a lot on his plate. Still, I don't know. Like, it sounds like thievery, but it also kind of betrays the person's trust too. So,
right.
It seems like even worse. And so it's interesting that it's just double instead of 5 times.
Right.
I still don't think 5 times is good. That was just weird. But the whole thing is just like, why go to God for this? Nothing else. I don't get it.
So I think we brought that up once on chapter 21, because they have this system of using the Urim and the Thummim, also known as casting of lots, where you can determine like the will of God.
Those like dice,
kind of.
Exactly like that.
They're more like I don't know, bowling pins. They're like these oblong shaped items.
And then how you figure out the will based on that?
Well, you have to throw them down, and depending on how they land, you can determine.
Do you ask a question first?
Yeah. It's essentially, it's like casting.
Why don't you just flip a coin afterward? Why do you have to go bowling?
You could if they had coins.
I mean, they could have used anything.
I know they could have used anything, but they had these special devices that God told them to make.
Oh, really? Okay.
We didn't get to that part yet. This is the funny part, because it's saying that you have to go before the Lord to make the decision, but we actually didn't get to the part where he gives them instructions on how to do that.
That is funny.
But those instructions are coming.
Huh. What are these called again?
The Urim and Thummim?
I'm going to look that up.
It's funny, too, because that's the same thing that Joseph Smith claimed he threw into the hat and called them seer stones.
And Thummim.
In the Dead Sea Scrolls, they get reframed or renamed as tongues of fire, because it was believed that they were made from like these sacred gemstones, and they glistened in the sun. They were shaped like a tongue.
Oh, were they made out of gemstones?
Probably not.
Where would they even get a hold of those?
The mountains. The mountains of Lebanon were full of gemstones.
Back in the day?
Yep.
Not anymore?
Oh, they probably still are today. I don't know.
Oh.
But they were back then. In fact, the Egyptian pharaohs bragged about going up there and mining the gemstones out of it. It was also highly sought after to get that blue stone, lapis lazuli.
Ooh, that's a pretty one.
Yeah, it was pretty abundant up there.
Okay. I didn't get a picture, but my wife said, stop looking at your phone. Oh.
Well, we can pull it up.
Okay. Look at you.
Right. See if we can actually pull up I doubt there's any good pictures of it. It's all modern, not a terrible replica of the pouch. It would have had a long like pocket in it where you could put the Urim and the Thummim in. And then you would take them out of your breastplate to do what you needed to do. But this one right here is typically what it looks like.
But it's got an X over it.
I know.
I don't know what to believe.
Well, I don't know who wrote the Book of Mormon. Yeah, it means nothing to me what they're saying. This is typically what it looks like. This one on the right. That's usually what the shape of it is.
I have no idea how you'd get information based on that.
Well, it's not round. It's typically got flat spots. It's going to land on one side or the other.
So it is just like a coin?
No.
I mean, as far as how you determine things.
No.
like you say to God, hey, yes or no. Yes being heads and no being.
There's a whole system to it. It's more complicated than coins.
Does it need to be?
It doesn't need to be, but it is.
Okay.
Okay. So the fact of the matter is that's what's happening when they bring somebody before God. But it seems to me, and this is a guess, the reason why they limit doing so is because if they just brought everything before God, like the priests would spend all day and night bringing people before God, doing the same thing over and over again. Seems like it'd be inconvenient for them. If I had to guess.
Yeah, but it would be a very, you know what? God could just say, hey, you know what you did? You know what I mean? He's everywhere.
That's a very good point. God is all powerful. He's
Don't do
everywhere
that.
at all times and sees everything, which
You don't have
means
to bring anything to him.
he could theoretically just speak to his judges when they come before him. He could just speak into their ear who's the guilty party or if no one's guilty.
Or just like, okay, I know who's coming to see you today. Here's the judgments.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he definitely could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be wild if he gave everyone the names and the judgments ahead of time and they walked up and like, here's Jim Bob and Joe Bob, and the guy's like, yeah, I already know Joe Bob's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting. And he could do it, remember? He's full of, endless power, right?
I bet there's a good way to bribe the priests.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Someone's getting greased.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Why couldn't he just speak to them instead of throwing lots?
Well, he could.
But he didn't.
Well, because here's my opinion on the whole casting of lots things. To me, casting of lots is no different than tarot cards or Ouija boards. It's the same thing. It's people using man-made objects to pretend like they can know the will of God because God doesn't actually speak to them.
You know what I think? I think that the difference here is that it would be really hard to know who to trust. So what they're doing is they're ostensibly asking God, but in reality, they're just, flipping a coin and, they'll just go with it,
Mm-hmm.
Because like the others, maybe you could go up in front of a judge and, have witnesses and all that called. But for this one, it's probably a little harder, And so they're just like, we'll flip a coin and pretend that,
right,
God controlled it.
Yeah, for real. Could you imagine though in the ancient world if you actually didn't commit the crime?
Yeah, nobody would ever believe you.
And you went before the Lord and the Lord said, "No, you did it."
Yeah.
You're right. No one would ever believe you. So if God is not actually controlling the casting of lots, then man, a lot of innocent people got taken advantage of.
Yeah. So I don't really know.
Pretty wild.
It is.
Let's see verse 10, 11, eh?
If a man gives to his neighbor a donkey or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep safe and it dies or is injured or is driven away without anyone seeing it, an oath by the Lord shall be between them both to see whether or not he has put his hand to his neighbor's property. The owner shall accept the oath and he shall not make restitution. So I assume this is like a preview of Leviticus. All that stuff we should expect there. Like you steal something, get caught, make restitution. If you steal something and don't get caught, have God tell you who the thief is and then make restitution. Is that basically Leviticus in a nutshell?
Not so much. But
damn.
It's interesting here though, because remember in the passage we just read, it talked about that the party will come before God and God will decide, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really say how God is going to decide, but it's presumed that it's the casting of lots. But in verse 10 and 11, we actually get something different. It talks about actually swearing an oath.
Yeah. And
swearing an oath was this really fun thing in the ancient world where, and you already know in the 10 Commandments, we talked about it, where it says, will not take the Lord's name in vain, and if you do, the Lord will hold you guilty. That's because swearing an oath, if you broke your oath, God would hold you accountable.
So basically, they're assuming that these people who are thieves are also afraid of God, and would not lie then. Because
Right.
if they do lie, then they're depending on God to punish them, and that should be good enough. That's why they don't need to make restitution, because God's coming for them.
I think that's the gist of it. That's kind of how I'm reading it as well. And I'm curious to see if there's a parallel to this in the Hammurabi law codes.
Well, there probably isn't. I mean, that's not religious in any way, is it? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, the Hammurabi law code starts with a listing of all the gods giving the
Oh,
laws.
oh,
In fact, I bet if we do a search for oath, there's a bunch of them in here. Yeah, 120
oh.
says if one stores corn for safekeeping in another person's house and any harm happens to the corn, so on and so forth, then the owner of the corn shall claim its corn before God on oath, and the owner of the house. So it's pretty common to swear oaths
Hmm.
on things. Here's another one. If a man brings a charge against one's wife, but she is not surprised with another man, she must take an oath and she may return to her house.
Yeah, because if she takes an oath, then it means that she's like either telling the truth, or if she's not, she's gonna get cursed.
Right.
So either way, it all works out.
But look at all the gods that are listed in the preamble of the Hammurabi Law Code. There's dozens of gods that are listed in the preamble. So the long and short of it is,
How many codes are in that thing?
I
In the
think
law code?
just over 300, right?
Well, I don't know why you're asking me. I'm asking you.
Let me double check. Almost. There's 282.
282.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like for as esoteric as some of them are, you'd need more than 300, you know? I'm surprised there aren't like thousands, you know? For sure, every little situation that could arise.
What's really interesting is you'll find in the ancient law codes there's a thing called a trial by river. I wonder if it made its way into the Hammurabi law code. I bet it did.
Is this where they see if you float or something?
It's
You
not.
don't
It's
float?
not actually too far.
No, if you don't float, you're innocent, right?
Yeah, here we go. Here, this describes a little bit of the trial by river. It says, if anyone brings an accusation against a man, and the accused go to the river and leap into the river, if he sinks in the river, his accuser shall take possession of his house. But if the river prove that the accused is not guilty, then then he escapes unhurt. Then he who brought the accusation shall be put to death, while he who leaped into the river shall take possession of the house. So, and this happens for a bunch of stuff. Like if a woman is suspected of cheating on her husband, she might have to go. There we go. 132. If the finger is pointed at a man's wife about another man, but she is not caught sleeping with the other man, she shall jump into the river for her husband.
And if she doesn't drown, she's
Innocent, basically.
innocent.
Isn't that weird? So they believe that the river was like a chaotic force controlled by a deity.
Yeah.
And if you're guilty, the river would cast judgment on you. And this is not all that dissimilar from what we find in the Bible, where you swear an oath before God, and then God holds you accountable to your oath.
Yeah. They're taking the laws, but then turning them toward, you know, what they believe instead. Right?
Basically.
Huh.
12 and 13.
Yeah. But if it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution to its owner. If it is torn by beasts, let him bring it as evidence. He shall not make restitution for what has been torn.
Yeah, Chet is saying in the comments, a trial by river isn't supposed to drown the guilty, I don't think. They pull you out even if you sink. You might be right, Chet. There was a paper I read on the river ordeal a couple years back. I think you and I might have even talked about it. And I'm not sure if it's presumed that the guilty party is supposed to die in the river, just that it's supposed to take them under. We should revisit that between this week and next week. I'll pull open some of the papers on the river ordeal because it's mentioned quite a bit in the ancient literature.
I mean, would they tie a rope to you or something and then pull you out?
They certainly could. Yeah.
They're just assuming their chaotic God is saying they're guilty, but I'm not going to kill them.
Perhaps, yeah.
All right, well, look it up.
Okay.
You're not gonna look it up.
I'll remember it a month and a half from now.
You'll remember
Actually, Chet's probably looking it up right now.
it.
He says there's one Akkadian text where they lost the guy who went under and scrambled to find him. If I remember right, I think you are remembering right, Chet. You get a good memory, but we should actually revisit that next week because it's going to come up more and more as we get through Exodus.
Well, let's write it down then. You got a thing here?
Yeah, dry erase board. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right.
There's a dry erase marker right there.
Whoops.
Just throw everything on the ground. That's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll break it later.
CD.
That's really a thing still. People still have that every once in a while.
That's crazy.
So we'll bring some river ordeal texts next week and we'll read some of that.
Okay.
All right. Restitution shall be made meet for the mangled remains. It is interesting. It says, let it be brought as evidence. Restitution shall not be made for the mangled remains. Isn't that interesting?
I don't know. What are we reading?
We just read 12 and 13.
Let me read it again.
You can read it out loud.
Okay. But if it is stolen from him, he shall make restitution. Owner. But if it is, wait, what are we talking about?
Verse 13. It says,
like a beast or something?
If it was mangled by beasts, let it be brought as evidence. Restitution shall not be made for the mangled remains.
Of like an animal? So if an animal was stolen from somebody, you gotta give them another one. But if the animal is torn by beasts, and the guy's like, look, it's all gross, then we're all good?
It's kind of what it says. So
Okay,
when someone delivers to another a donkey, ox, sheep, or any other animal for safekeeping, so it's babysitting.
Okay.
Right? And it dies or is injured while being babysat, then there's restitution. But it says, if it was mangled, let it be brought as evidence. Restitution shall not be made for the mangled remains. It seems to be suggesting that if an animal is coming to kill the animal while it's being babysat by another, that the person babysitting isn't necessarily required to pay restitution because it wasn't his fault. An animal came and did it.
But it is kind of his fault because he's the one watching.
I know.
I think it would make more sense if he was at fault because it'd be obvious that he wasn't doing his job, right?
Well, see, that's the weird thing because in verse 12, it says, if it's stolen, then you got to pay restitution, right? Now, if it's mangled, you don't have to pay restitution. But theoretically, if the animal is being kept safe in your house or on your farm or whatever, the same level of supervision to make sure it's not stolen would also probably ensure that it's not going to get mangled, you would think.
Okay.
Unless we're assuming that the mangling may be happening at night while they're sleeping or something, and like a wild animal, a nocturnal animal, or a fox or something is going to sneak in and mangle it, right? I don't know how else. I don't know how else you can justify paying restitution for one and not the other.
Yeah. I'd just be like, you're on your own, buddy. Just so I never have that issue.
Right.
Right? I ain't taking your thing in. Or do you have to do that?
I think it's kind of good hospitality to do that. Yeah, I think you're kind of expected to be good to your neighbor that way. Not like America, where you're expected, you actively avoid talking to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's read 14 and 15.
If a man borrows anything of his neighbor and it is injured or dies, the owner, not being with it, he shall make full restitution. But if the owner was with it, he shall not make restitution. And if it was hired, it came for its hiring fee. So if you borrow something and it dies, and the original owner is still with you, there's no restitution because, he's he's there, and presumably it's still, his job to watch over his thing. But if he's not there, you got to pay. Bam. That was it.
That makes sense to me, actually.
Yeah.
Because if you borrow one of my tools and you and I are using it together
Yeah.
and it breaks, I mean, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you borrow one of my tools and I'm not with you and you break my tool, then like, well, you gotta pay me. You must have done something dumb with it. You gotta pay me my tool back now.
Or just throw it in your garage. Broken.
That is something you would do,
I have done it.
and I would bring you before the Lord and cast lots and throw you into the river.
Okay. I'll be in there a long time. All right.
Don't worry, that you might have a rope around you. We'll see.
Not around my neck, I hope.
No, let's hope not. All right, this is a fun one. 16 and 17.
If a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall give the bride price for her and make her his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money equal to the bride price for virgins. So this is basically saying if you want to have inconsensual, that's the word, right?
Unconsensual?
Whatever. The bad sex. Either you marry them or you pay them off. It's about right.
Well, there's been some question about whether or not seduce means seduce.
Non-consensual. There we go.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. There's some question about whether or not seduce means to seduce or to like overpower or like, have non-consensual sexual relations.
I almost feel like they probably. I mean, that's probably their way of saying it. Because I don't know if they even believed in non-consensual. You know what I mean?
Well,
Seems like they didn't have much agency. You know what I mean?
the women, you mean?
Yes.
No, they really didn't. Agency for women wasn't really. So the word for seduce that we have here is yifte, and I'm not entirely sure. I should have looked this up ahead of time to see if it appears in a whole lot of situations in the Bible. I don't think it's a very common word. It only shows up a handful of times, meaning to entice, to deceive, persuade, flatter, allure, enlarge, or different things like that. So there's been a lot of debate because of the semantic range of the word that it could be referring to somebody not necessarily having non-consensual sex. I'm of the opinion that it is talking about non-consensual sex, just to be quite honest. Like he's tricking her or doing something deceitful to get her to have sex. Not necessarily like physically just grabbing hold of her and raping her. That's how I'm reading it. But there is some discussion on this, and Chet and I, he's already chimed in. We both agree it's non-consensual sex, and this seems to be what most scholars think about it as well.
So when they were reading this back in the day, would they know what that word means since it means so many things?
Yeah.
Oh, they would.
Because essentially what's happened is that he's devaluing the woman, right? Because to her father, the woman is worth a certain price as a virgin.
Yeah.
Right. So when somebody's having sex with this young virgin, they're now being devalued, and so he's basically committing a property crime.
Oh.
Against the man, against the father.
Yeah, that's it's a terrible way to put it.
It is.
It is, yeah.
Let's see if there's a note on this on the Net Bible with notes. I'm curious if they even bring it up.
You know what? Maybe I'll look at another translation too.
The Message? I don't know why you would do that.
Let's see what it says.
Okay. Yeah, the Net Bible didn't give any interesting translation notes. I thought it might, but
okay, I got your back here.
I don't know why you would possibly think that the Message is worth looking up.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's got some interesting ways. It's the same thing. All right.
Right.
Is it the same thing? It must have been a mistake.
Well, the parallel to this is in Deuteronomy 22.
That was NIV. We're being silly. Go ahead, but I'll look it up.
Let's see, the parallel to this is in Deuteronomy 22, and it says something pretty dang close to the same thing, but it makes it a little bit more explicit. And when Deuteronomy gives the laws, it does kind of update these Exodus laws. Some of them change, some of them not so much.
Okay, okay.
But in 22:28, it says, if a man meets a virgin who is not engaged and seizes her
Uses her.
and lies with her, and they are discovered, the man who lay with her shall give 50 shekels of silver to the young woman's father because she has become his wife, but because he has violated her, he shall not be permitted to divorce her as long as he lives.
Wow, is that non-consensual with that
Yeah,
one?
that one seems to be
So
definitively.
she stuck with him too.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that, right?
Well, that it didn't matter.
No.
They didn't care about that kind of thing. So the women of the ancient world didn't really have sexual rights.
How much money was that again for them? No, right? You said on the thing.
Well, what the bride price was, if you read in
Yeah,
the
but
Talmud,
it said it right there, doesn't it?
right where?
With the last thing you read.
Deuteronomy 22:28.
I guess so. 50 shekels.
Sure.
So is that like a normal bride price?
I don't know what the normal bride price was. We don't have writings from the Jews from that time period. We do have writings in the Talmud to talk about the bride price. So if you read Ketuvot, that tractate in the Talmud, you'll find various bride prices and various, we'll say, case law surrounding the bride price. But you know, in terms of what is a normal bride price, we could possibly turn to other texts from the time period. Now, there are some really interesting dowry lists from the ancient world from not too far after Deuteronomy was given. So if you want to know what was in a typical dowry, those do exist. You can see what a dowry was. But I'm not really sure what like a generic bride price would have
What year
been
was
in
this?
Moses's time period.
What year was this?
What was what?
This.
When it was written or when it's purporting to happen?
What?
Well, I mean, it's an important question. I mean, Moses was theoretically in the Exodus between the 1400s and the 1200s, but most experts believe this was probably written many hundreds of years later.
Well, if
So
it was written many hundreds of years later, I guess you need to know that one because otherwise, inflation would have annihilated it, right?
well, for sure, because if you read in the Talmud, the bride price is much higher in the Talmud than it
Okay.
is in Exodus.
Oh, okay, okay.
So apparently, virginity does fall prey to inflation like everything else.
So what year would that be that they wrote it then?
I would say Ketuvot probably around the 1st or 2nd century.
So what's that like? The year 100 or something?
0.
1,000? I don't.
Could just do year 0 for a century.
Okay, I said. Oh yeah,
Are you using the inflation calculator?
I'm using ChatGPT, bro.
You're gonna chat GTP the inflation monetary value, the monetary inflation of virginity?
That's not at all what I'm.
You really worry me.
I said, what is 50 shekels of silver in the year 0 converted to 25 USA dollars?
Oh, okay. Well, what is it?
I'm going to tell you right now. $485.
That's really cheap. That's really cheap for getting to
Right.
seduce a virgin.
Mm.
I'm surprised at people who paid that all day. And you get to keep them?
Yeah.
It seems like they're asking you to mistreat women here.
Well, they're certainly letting rich people get off the hook.
Yeah, it
Huh?
would seem that way, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So this is not a modern concept.
I agree. All right. Verse 18.
You shall not permit a sorceress to live.
Yeah, that's a long one, eh?
Yeah. Not anything even about going to God to make sure they're a sorceress. Just one of those, if it thinks it wasn't a witch deals.
I mean, if she's a witch, if you throw her in the river and she floats, she's gone.
Yeah.
You see Monty Python, right?
Yeah, that's why. Well, that's what I'm trying to something. But yeah, there's nothing else added to it. Is this assuming that they would openly admit it or something?
Yeah, how would they determine?
Or is it just like the Salem witch trials, you know?
So that's the thing is the Bible doesn't actually tell you like how you would determine whether or not somebody was a sorcerer, but typically a sorcerer in the ancient world was somebody who practiced like I don't know, like potions and curses and things like that. Like you could go to a sorcerer and they would like consult the dead for you, or they would give you magic potions of curses. So like it was kind of a profession.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like just some random woman in her kitchen. So I guess if
I'm sure there were none of these when they were wandering the desert.
it would seem
So it would be
likely,
weird to give this law out, right?
I don't know, because sorcerers could theoretically be nomads. Like you could do your sorcery in a tent.
Yeah, but I mean, these are just all for the Jews, right? Is any of them going to be like, you know what? I'm going to be a sorcerer for these people?
What do you mean?
I don't know what I mean.
Well, I don't know what you mean if you don't know what you mean.
These laws from Moses are to the Jews.
So?
And the Jews are all, I don't want to say Christians,
They're definitely not Christians.
but that's the best
since
way.
Christ wasn't there
Yeah,
yet.
but that's the best way I can put it.
You
know
mean
what I
they follow God?
Yeah.
Okay, you just said they follow God.
Okay, Guardians.
Okay.
I don't know. But my point is, I doubt any of them would decide at that point to be sorcerers, right? So this has to be what?
I mean, I don't know why you would think that at this point that they were monotheists.
But that's a
They just left Egypt.
yeah. But guess what? There is a God there
So?
called God who is doing all this stuff for them.
But they
Also,
don't believe in one God. They believe in many gods.
well,
Everybody did.
we've already had the 10 Commandments, and they said very clearly
No, you said you'll have no other gods before me. You
before me.
didn't say that there's no other gods.
What am I looking for?
I'm looking at you.
Oh, okay.
You lost it. What happened?
It's a. Oh, I thought you wrote "look up" on that.
I'm not writing a message to you on the whiteboard.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought you were, and I'm like, what am I looking at?
You wrote "look up" on here.
Yeah, but you got rid of other stuff, so.
Well, it was too sloppy to read. I was rewriting it.
Oh, okay.
I want to be able to read it later.
All right. I thought there was something I was missing.
No, there's nothing on the ceiling.
All right.
I'm just rewriting the message that you wrote that was too sloppy to read.
Okay.
Oh boy, it's a wild night. What were we talking about?
The sorceresses.
What about them? Yeah.
Why would there be any among the guardians?
Why wouldn't there?
Why wouldn't there? That didn't make any sense. You can't just take my question and throw it back in my face. All right.
Well, you think that all these people leaving Egypt that have been there for the last 400 years, probably following many forms of different paganism, are just going to like immediately just put down all their pagan practices right
and
away?
if they don't, you just to kill them?
Apparently.
Can't they just be like, okay, guys, okay, I get it.
Listen, you cannot suffereth a witch to live.
I assume that's in the Bible too.
That's the King James Version.
Oh, okay.
Meaning, yeah.
Really weird.
I know, right? The way they say it.
No, it's always terrible. But I don't get it. Okay, it's weird. I mean, it would make sense if this was written at a later date, and this is basically talking about like other cultures, and they're like, make sure you kill all the sorceress in the other cultures. But I just don't know why they would have any within their own little. I mean, surely any of them, upon seeing all the stuff God has done, would be like, whoa, I'm not doing this anymore. You know what I mean? Why would they continue?
Because maybe they're living in a time period where they don't know anything about the supposed miracles, like the parting of the sea, or
Well, they would, because they're part of the Jewish posse wandering the desert.
that's what I'm saying. You're presuming that the whole story is true.
Yeah.
Not likely true.
Okay.
These laws were probably given at a time period where the people would be so disconnected from the original events, and they might not even have a full story of the original events, that this idea that they'd be so afraid to cross God that they wouldn't do things they're not supposed to. And it doesn't hold up, because in the entire Old Testament, all we see is the people doing what they're not supposed to. It's like the one thing that they do consistently is what they're not supposed to.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Like, if this was legitimately true, like God just freed everybody and parted the sea and everything,
Yeah.
then I would say there'd be a very low number of people that practice sorcery. But again, practicing sorcery for a lot of people, they wouldn't have known that that was bad. Why would they think it's bad?
Well, then why are they just killing them?
Because God doesn't want them.
I know, but shouldn't they say, hey, don't do this anymore?
Why would God do that?
What?
The God of the Old Testament does not practice mercy. If you do the thing he doesn't want to, he kills you.
Yeah, but what if you don't know it's wrong?
So what? Numbers 15 happens to a guy, doesn't know he's doing anything wrong. God kills him.
Why? What was that about?
Well, he's picking up sticks on the wrong day.
Oh, it was no stick day. Huh?
No stick day. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, well, then I don't know what to say anymore.
When Nadab and Abihu offered the unholy fire, in the temple, and they weren't given a warning, they were immediately executed. That doesn't do a whole lot of warnings. You just step out and he smites you. When Uzzah reached out and touched the ark because the ark was going to fall over,
Yeah.
God smote him on the spot. Right?
Yeah, I wonder what you were supposed to do about that. If you can just use tongs or something.
Actually, that brings up a really good point. We're way off topic now, but you're not supposed to touch the ark. Got it. But what if you have a really big set of gloves or something? Can you put on protective gloves and then touch the ark? Where's the line drawn?
Right. Yeah.
Because theoretically, how far is the barrier before you're not technically touching it? Can you poke it with a stick?
Were priests allowed to touch it?
Kind of, not really. It says no in some spots, but in other spots, they had to put stuff in it, which means somebody had to touch it.
Right, yeah, with
there's
very long stick or something, yeah.
It's conflicting information, basically.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Well,
and people touch it later that don't get killed.
Huh?
Yeah, there are people that later somebody touched it and we're not told that they're killed.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it was not magical anymore.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I know.
I don't know where that was in the Bible.
Does the Indiana Jones version?
What? They all die in that one.
I know. I know.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Let's do verse 19. Another very long passage.
Whoever lies with an animal shall be put to death.
I mean,
I get it.
What more really needs to be said about that?
I'm not sure our viewers in Alabama are going to like that. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding. I'm sure they're all too busy having sex with sheep to watch us. I
made a really funny joke that I don't think you'll appreciate, but Chet, if you're watching, clearly Exodus 22 about having sex with your animals possibly is just a wordplay in the Bible. God could have been saying that surely the sheep is the bone of my zone. Hebrew for sheep. You get it in Genesis when he says bone of my bones? Adam said the it's just a mistranslation. See?
Yeah.
That's funny. Chet got it. Chet got it. He got it.
Okay, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. Okay, that's over my head.
One person got it. That's all I needed.
Okay, that's enough. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So don't bone your animals. Basically, the thing.
Yeah. So apparently, bestiality was a problem back then too.
It seems that way.
What an embarrassing reason to be put to death. I couldn't help it that hairy ass was just too much for me.
It does bring up a good point.
Hairy ass. All right.
That's a good one.
That's not as good as yours, but
Because well, hair ass and hair ass. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I like that. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. This turned out to be a good verse. All right. I got lost on hairy ass. Give me a second to recuperate my thoughts. Right. Don't listen. Don't have sex with sheep or oxen or cattle, I would imagine. Although it's interesting to me, and I've had this thought before. Um, okay, you live in a world in which literally, like, you're allowed to just kidnap young virgins.
Yeah.
Like Judges 19, all the Israelites are just okay with the young women being kidnapped.
Mhm.
Why are you boning sheep when you can just go kidnap a woman and make her your wife?
Mhm.
What do you need why are you touching animals?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think because you think that, and you're coming from, like a middle class background.
Mm.
But I bet there were a lot of really poor people there too, right?
Oh, they couldn't afford the bride price.
Or can't just kidnap somebody,
Maybe. Maybe they couldn't take care of them once they kidnapped them.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good, we look at it here and we're like, why doesn't somebody just go buy a TV or something? Why do they have to steal it? Like, well, a lot of people, can't afford it,
Fair enough.
So they're going to listen to the radio instead.
Right.
Animals are like the radio in that analogy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. Well, let's see now. What's the next one? It says wife isn't suspicious of the wool on your pillow. Could you imagine? Well, listen, in 2 Samuel, maybe was it chapter 14 or something, somewhere in there? David's wife puts I think goat's hair on an idol in bed as a decoy for David as he's on the run. So maybe Chet, maybe you're onto something. Maybe David had animals in the bed.
This makes no sense to me, but I'm sure you guys get it.
Anyways, all I'm saying is,
wouldn't that suck though to be married and then find out your husband's having sex with sheep instead of you?
Could you imagine coming in from gathering water and your husband is lying down carnally with a sheep?
Mm-hmm. It's got to be a blow to the ego.
You would think so. You think one animal would be more atrocious than the other? Like, is there one particular animal that your wife would be more offended if you were sleeping with? Like, for example, like, is one animal uglier than another? Or are they all equally hideous?
I mean, if it's between like sheep and donkeys,
right?
I think sheep are,
Well, that was my thought.
Yeah.
Like, if she caught you with a donkey, she'd be like, "Well, you could have at least made it a sheep."
Right.
Why don't replace me with a donkey?
Right. I mean, they'd be like, I may be ugly, but I'm not Leah ugly,
Damn Lee in those eyes. Oh boy.
I'm making biblical jokes now.
Fair enough.
I'm doing it.
I like a good biblical joke.
Thank you.
Well, what's our next verse here?
20?
20? I think we're on 20 now. All right, let's have it.
Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord alone shall be devoted to destruction.
Bum, 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 bum.
So either this is another way to say you're putting to death or not. I don't know. It sounds like a really bad metal band.
Yeah.
Devoted to destruction.
So we have this really interesting word in Hebrew, harem, that is referring to human beings that are basically killed in like manner to like a burnt offering.
Huh?
Now, it's not always true. That's not always the case. Sometimes you can go and attack a town and you can just put everybody to the sword in the entire town, devote the entire town to destruction, and that's the same thing. But there are some occasions in the ancient world where when an individual is dedicated to a harem, that you would kill them in a particular way. It's a person that your god specifically wants you to kill. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of discussion in scholarly circles as to whether or not a harem has any overlap with an actual offering, like a burnt offering of animal. Because there seems to be some ancient cultures that had a version of harem that did kind of overlap with actually giving an offering. For example, if you read the Mesha Stele, um, King Mesha does a harem on a tribe, um, and says it was to the Lord, or to his God. Let me pull it up for you real quick.
Didn't Reuben and Simeon, I think, have just the devote of destruction to the Shechems or something?
Yeah, well,
I think I did all that right, didn't I? Right names and stuff.
it was Reuben and Simeon, or no, it was Levi and Simeon, if I remember correctly.
Well, whatever. The point is, they just because one of them had sex with their sister,
Right,
and so they just devoted all of them to destruction.
right.
That sounds like what you're talking about. I don't know.
All right, so let's grab there we go, the Mesha Stele here.
What's this?
This is an 8th century BCE stele that was erected by King Mesha of
Now, what's a
Moab.
stele?
Um, like a standing stone that you would inscribe something on.
Like the
I can just show you a picture
like
of
the
it.
Rosetta Stone?
I'll just show you a picture of it.
Like the Rosetta Stone?
No.
No, probably similar at least.
This is the Mesha Stele. Right here, this guy.
Okay.
Anyways, in the Mesha Stele.
So it's like a sign made out of stone.
Yeah.
Or is there something I'm missing here?
Good enough. So it says, his god Chemosh said to him, "Go and take Nebo from Israel." And I went in the night and fought against it from daybreak until midday. And I took it and I killed the whole population, 7,000 male subjects and aliens, and female subjects, aliens, and servant girls, for I had put it to the ban. The ban is another English translation for harem. As I put it to harem for Ashtar Chamish, for his god. So then I took Yahweh's vessels and I presented them before Chemosh's face.
Yahweh is our God, right?
Yes, that's the biblical god. So in this war, King Mesha was victorious over the Israelites, and he took the vessels of Yahweh and presented them to his god.
Who's Nebo?
That's a city.
Oh, that Israel owned?
Yep.
And so this king is like, I want to get that city?
Yep.
That was in Israel's jurisdiction, I guess?
Yep.
And then they did.
Mhm.
And then they killed everybody in there?
It killed everybody in the town, all of it, as a harem for Ashtar Chemosh, which means that the killing of the people was dedicated to a deity.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't just for warfare's sake. So these types of inscriptions from the time period is what lead a lot of scholars to suspect that when we find the same word in the Bible, that it's being used in like manner. When God is talking about someone devoted to destruction,
Yeah.
it's somebody that's being executed for the God.
And this one that you were just looking at, the guy says the God told him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so since that really didn't happen, he just decided to kill them for no reason?
Well, I don't, obviously, you and I don't think that the God of Moab is real. So yeah, it happened for no reason.
Okay. Well, no, because obviously nobody would have told him, "Hey, you need to kill these people."
What do you mean?
Well, because there is no, I can't see it. What were we looking at?
The Mesha Stele text? Oh, hold on, where was it? There it is.
Yeah, there was no god named Chemosh.
Not according to Mesha,
Who's Mesha?
the king.
Yeah, but it says, and Chemosh said to me, "Go and kill a lot of people."
Yep.
So the guy's saying that he spoke with a god spoke to him.
Right.
But we know that didn't happen because the Chemosh doesn't exist. So basically, in his
How do you
own
know that?
So basically, in his own head, he was like, "I'm going to kill these people, and I'll say it's for my God."
No, he probably went before a priest, and the priest did the same thing that the Israelites did, where they cast lots and inquired of their God, and their God said, "Go and take it."
Mm.
You know?
And I mean, was this a real thing that happened, or
Yeah.
this killing everybody in Nebu?
Yeah.
Really? Oh. So why do you think that happened?
Well, why what? Because that's how history works. People go to war and they blame it on their God.
Jephthah. Jephthah.
Oh, that's actually
Jephthah.
Jephthah. Yeah, that's actually a really good point in Judges 11.
That's weird. Wasn't he supposed to be, I could be wrong, but like somebody that God liked or something?
He was kind of one of the judges in the book of
But
Judges.
he was a king too, right?
No,
I think it was.
he wasn't.
Well, somebody with his name was.
No.
Similar.
Nah.
Similar.
Nah. I mean, Josiah?
Yeah, that's right.
Not even close.
I was right.
It's like saying all white people look alike.
Is it bad?
Not even close to the same name.
What?
So Chemosh does show up in Judges 11, 24, as Chet said. It says, "So now the Lord God of Israel has conquered the Amorites for the benefit of his people Israel. Do you intend to take their place? Should you not possess what your God Chemosh gives you to possess? And should you not be the ones to possess everything that the Lord your God has conquered for your benefit?" So on and so forth. So Chemosh was a known deity. He shows up in the Bible.
Yeah, but it sounds like this Jephthah guy is being like a little sarcastic, right?
No.
You know?
You should probably read the whole story. It's a really good story, actually. He
Well,
sacrifices his daughter to Yahweh. Pretty wild.
wait, Jephthah?
Jephthah.
Jephthah
Yeah.
sacrifices his daughter?
Mhm.
Well, that's not good.
Well, God didn't seem to have a problem with it
Oh, well, why did he stop Abraham from doing it then?
because he was just testing Abraham.
But this was not a test.
Apparently not.
All right. Sometimes I just would love it if I could talk to, like, say for instance, the leader of my adult men's group, and really get his views on these.
He probably has no idea they're there.
Right. So what do you do then? You know?
I don't know. Read it to him.
No. What does he do then? Just be like ignores it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, head in the sand, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's do 21 through
21.
21, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why you have yours sectioned off, but go ahead.
What do you mean? It's a verse.
Well, you grouped 22 and 23 and 24 together, but you segregated 21 for some reason.
Oh, there must be a reason for that.
Must be.
"You shall not wrong a sojourner or oppress him. For you were sojourners in the land of Egypt, unless they're slaves, in which case nobody gives a crap about them.
Yeah.
It's not like you were slaves in Egypt." I love how all these laws end in "shall be put to death." And then every once in a while you have a feel-good law like this so we can pretend God is actually pretty chill.
It actually is weird because like God especially in Leviticus, he'll say like show no mercy to the one being put together. But yet then in the same book he's like but I'm so merciful and loving even into the 10th generation. Like wait a minute. You just a few chapters ago you said kill him, show no pity. Crazy.
This one is especially damning for the current Christian nationalists. who are trying to get rid of all the immigrants,
Well, yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so because the foreigners dwelling in your land are supposed to be cared for as though they are widows and orphans, essentially. You know, you're supposed to look out for them.
Yeah, instead of wanting to get rid of them or
Right.
see them die
Right.
or send them to Guantanamo Bay.
Which is precisely why verse 21 shows up with 22 and 23, because the foreigner is akin to widows and orphans. Let's read 22 to 24 and we'll put it in context.
I don't know if I want your context. You shall not mistreat any widow or fatherless child. If you do mistreat them and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will burn, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall become widows and your children fatherless. That's a bit extreme, right?
Kind of an eye for an eye, it sounds like, right?
I mean, it's rather unrealistic, though, since, it relies on God having to bring the punishment instead of, like, previous laws where it was restitution or what have you, right?
Well, it's kind of an interesting law because,
God doesn't use a sword.
well,
Come on.
what he's suggesting is he's gonna have somebody else come and kill you.
Okay, well, it should say that.
Well, that's what it means to bring a sword. An invading army is gonna come and,
Or it meant God was going to bring a sword, like, in his hand or something. That's what it said.
I mean, perhaps the angel of the Lord could, if that happens, theoretically in 2 Samuel chapter 24,
Yeah.
where the pestilence was delivered via the angel of the Lord, whereas the punishment was described as the sword of the Lord. So if the sword of the Lord is being delivered by the angel of the Lord, then theoretically he could do it here as well.
I get it. I'm just saying what it says and what you tell me it says are different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
agreed.
elsewhere in the Bible, God casts judgment on his people by bringing in invading armies.
Well, were they put to the using a sword?
Yeah.
Whatever. All right.
That's why it says, I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will become widows, and your children orphans. Same thing is said when he casts judgment on Israel and tells them that, like, the Babylonians and the Assyrians are going to come in and make war with you as judgment. It says your wives will be raped, your children will be fatherless. There are different things like that.
So, are you trying to tell me this is not for immigrants or what have you?
No, this is for the Israelite who is mistreating the immigrant, the widows, and the orphans.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking you. Who are the widows and the orphans? Are they
Well,
Israelites?
obviously, they're not named.
Thanks, but are they Israelites too? Or are we talking about different countries
Well,
or
it doesn't really say, just a
different-
widow or a orphan.
a orphan, huh?
An orphan.
But my point is this a good verse that we could use
For what?
to justify not having Christian nationalists act the way they do currently for immigration and all that?
No, I don't think I think it's a little bit helpful, but I don't think it's super helpful because, for example, they would say, well, this is not talking about illegal aliens, it's talking only about legal aliens. Right?
Mhm.
They would draw a distinction between legal and illegal aliens.
I doubt that was a thing back then, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody was out there protecting the border to see who was a legal and illegal alien.
Yeah, they were just like, come on in, we'll help you out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's more to it, yeah.
Yeah, can't have that though. I was reading that nowadays. I guess empathy is a sin.
A little bit, and it was much more. You were expected to be hospitable to foreigners back in the day, because we even see that in the story of David. When David was on the run, from Saul, he went to the enemy's territory. He went to Achish, in the Philistines, and the Philistine king took him in.
Mm.
So, like, there's definitely this idea in the ancient world where foreigners looking for a place of refuge will find it. That it is part of the hospitality of the ancient world. I mean,
So this guy who took in David, and they were enemies. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Did God ever say thank you for doing that,
Not that I'm aware of.
or did they just go ahead and kill them anyhow
No, they died eventually.
from the Israelites?
Yep.
Okay,
It
that's
didn't turn out too well for them.
That sounds a little ridiculous, right?
Pretty low.
It is low.
Pretty low. Let's see. Are we on 25 now?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
If you lend money to any of my people with you who is poor, you shall not be like a money lender to him, and you shall not exact interest from him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is awkward. Just pretend this for.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why the Catholic Church prohibited usury for so many years.
And then they realized they were missing out on a bunch of money.
In fact, I think usury even shows up in the Catechism of all places. Do I have my Catholic Catechism study Bible? Hold on.
Okay.
You can keep talking. I'm gonna look.
Oh yeah. So here. Oh, I don't know what to say. You watch that Super Bowl?
I did not.
No, me neither. Football
I don't know where I put
and
it.
all sports are very stupid and pointless. Except for bowling. Bowling's kind of cool. And soccer sometimes. But I mean American soccer, not this, flop fest.
Let's see. There was a note on usury in the Catechism, but I forget where it's at now. We don't have to look at it. We can worry about that sometime later. But the Catholics took this one pretty damn seriously. In fact, this was one of the reasons why, for a long period of time, they pushed Jewish people into banking.
Right, and that's why people didn't like Jewish people, right?
What do you mean?
Because Jewish people were not beholden to this. And so they were allowed to charge interest.
No. I mean, there was a short time period where that may have been true, but for the most part, what happened was nobody in the empire could charge interest.
Okay.
Nobody was allowed to do it. So the Jews had like a pre-formatted list of jobs that they were allowed to have because the Holy Roman Empire was in the game of subjugating Jews for a very long time, and they would dictate, like they wouldn't let them take the good jobs. Same thing like when they freed the slaves and the slaves wanted to be farmers, they said, well, you can't raise sheep or goats or whatever. You have to raise chickens because it was like a low money type
Where
of
was
item.
that? In America?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
banking was a low job, what you're
it
saying.
wasn't a money making industry until the
Which is why, yeah, it's fun to be interrupted, I know. Which is why the Catholics were like, yeah, do this because there's no money in it because usury didn't exist. And then all of a sudden it started existing.
Yes, when the Holy Roman Empire started to crumble and they became a little more secularized and some of these Catholic laws went away,
Okay.
then it positioned the Jewish people to be in a very profitable industry, which is just a big old turn of irony since they were initially pushed into it because it wasn't profitable. And then when it became profitable, everybody blamed the Jews for having all the controlling the banks.
And that's why people originally started not liking Jewish people, right?
Is one of the reasons, yeah.
Okay. I feel like I heard that somewhere.
Yeah, it's legit. Yep.
Hmm.
But yeah, so usury is bad.
And usury is a sin.
But you can exact it of foreigners. It doesn't show up here in Exodus, but it does show up in Leviticus. Either Leviticus or Deuteronomy, I forget which one. But in one of those two books, it does say that you can charge interest to foreigners, just not to your local Hebrew Israelites.
So in America, we should not charge interest to Americans, but to other countries.
I mean, if you're gonna have a theocracy,
Well, we do.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 23 has.
I don't know what you call like a theocracy. Dictatorship. Theocracy. Dictatorship. Just say something.
Leadership?
Yeah, that's it. All right. All right.
All right.
Number 26.
26, 27.
If ever you take your neighbor's cloak and pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down, for that is his only covering, and it is his cloak for his body. And what else shall he sleep? And if he cries to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate.
After he just said, make sure anyone devoted to destruction gets destroyed.
Right.
Oh, most merciful.
So this is actually sad.
Yeah.
They must sleep in shifts, so everyone gets to use the communal sleeping cloak.
Wait, what?
Because they just have the one, you know?
It's not shared for the whole family.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just what it said, so whatever.
If you take it, obviously the one that he wears, his personal cloak. They're not sharing. There's not like a family of 8 children sharing one cloak at night.
I don't know. I was just reading the daggone thing. Yeah.
Obviously you understand the point here is that, like, listen, if you've got your neighbor's cloak, don't keep it longer than you need to because he needs it.
It's interesting there's no punishment or anything, right?
Yeah. But if the neighbor does cry out,
I will hear.
Then God he'll act. It's interesting that he's going to wait for him to cry out, though. Like, if God is all knowing and he's in all places, all times, theoretically, the neighbor doesn't need to cry out. God should just do the thing, right? Why does he need the neighbor to cry out before he does the thing?
So, here's the thing.
Sure.
You're taking your neighbor's cloak and pledge,
right?
Which I presume means that you owe them something.
Typically.
So this would be similar to like pawning your only pair of pajamas.
Yeah.
And then going around naked all day so you can work toward buying your pajamas back. That's what I imagine is going on here.
You're not far off. That's basically it.
Weird.
Right. And I remember in the story of Tamar and Judah had to give his signet ring and I think his staff as a pledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it basically doesn't have to be a cloak that you give as a pledge. It could be many things. But if somebody does have to put up their cloak as a pledge, you just can't keep it, for a long period of time because they actually need it. It's a vital thing.
So would they just go around naked during the day then?
No.
Well, because that's their only garment.
It's probably the outer garment. There's multiple garments.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they had the inner garments. Back in the day. Yeah. Okay, so they got one cloak per person.
Oh, depends on how much money you got. Some people in the ancient world had multiple garments.
Yeah, good for them. We're talking about the people that got to pawn theirs to a neighbor.
Yeah, the poor ones.
Right. They don't have they don't have blankets or anything? I mean, it says this is for you're gonna get cold at night. Do they just sleep on the ground with a stone for a pillow and they're glad they have a cloak at least?
Basically.
A really gross cloak or what?
If people don't have money.
That's sad.
The ancient world was rough.
If only there was some, I don't know, all-powerful being that could change that.
Give them pillows?
Yeah, give them pillows.
It does bring up an interesting point. If God knows all things, he knows eventually humans are going to invent pillows and comfortable beds and things that make life way better, like cure diseases. Why wouldn't he just give people that information sooner?
I don't know.
He wants them to suffer. Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know. All right. Anyhow,
so many scientists will credit God for their scientific discoveries, but if God was in charge of it, he would have given it sooner. You would think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, football players credit God for their wins. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how much stock I would put in any of these people.
Yeah, I would not
No.
put any stock on
I
that.
understand scientists are very smart people, but that's a dumb thing to say.
Yeah, I'm with you actually. We agree wholeheartedly on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do 28.
You shall not revile God, nor curse or curse a ruler of your people.
Yeah,
So
tough one.
don't show any of the Republicans this one.
Mm.
You know, when it's Trump, he's a god among men. When it's a Democrat, or really anyone who's in a white male, all of a sudden he's an illegitimate ruler or some bullshit.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. When it's your guy, God did it. When it's not your guy, the devil's at work.
Yeah, they just ignore this.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody, I won't name names, but you know, he believes this. You know, that people in power are put there by God. And I said, "What about Hitler?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what to say to that." It's like, no shit, you don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, because it's a good question. It tests the logical limit of his silly talking point.
Right, right.
Yeah, the problem is the Bible does say that. The Bible says that God puts them in place. It's in the New Testament.
Does or doesn't, or
It does. I think it's in first or second Peter. Also, Chet had a really interesting comment. So that I heard a creationist say that God created the ridge of the nose so people could wear glasses after the fall.
See, God was thinking. He was thinking.
He
Knew what we'd need. That's
Oh,
why our
boy.
ears are like that too. You know,
Like what?
like you can.
Oh, for the glasses, obviously. Yeah, we were. That's why bananas are curved too.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
The atheist word nightmare. Oh boy.
Yeah.
29.
Yeah. So
Oh right. What are you saying?
you think that whoever put this in there was just? Why did they do that?
Do what?
Say that all of your rulers are God ordained.
Probably because they don't want to get cursed. The same people who wrote this law were the same people in charge.
So they didn't.
Obviously, they're going to put a rule in charge to protect themselves.
Mm.
In fact, later, if you read Deuteronomy, if you go before a judge and the judge renders a decision and you disobey it, you get executed.
Oh, but extreme, isn't it?
Well, don't question authority.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's all right.
Yeah. No.
That kind of stuff always bugs me because the Republicans always bring that up, and I'm like, yeah, you sure liked Obama, didn't you?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny when Trump's in office, you got to pray for the president.
Right.
Yeah. When Obama's in office, you have to pray to get him out of office.
Or pray for the nation.
Pray for the nation. We're suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate hypocrites.
It is what it is. All right, verse 29.
You shall not delay to offer from the fullness of your harvest and from the outflow of your presses. The firstborn of your sons you shall give to me. You shall do the same with your oxen and with your sheep. 7 days it shall be with its mother. On the 8th day you shall give it to me.
Dun, dun, dun,
So
dun.
I think we know that while firstborn animals are killed, the children are just not or something. I mean, I think we mentioned this already. That
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It seems to be because later in Exodus, or actually earlier in Exodus, it talks about this, and it seems to suggest that the if it's a human being, it will be redeemed with an
Right.
animal.
Yeah.
But in this case, it doesn't say that, and this is why in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel interpreted this as actually being about child sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we need to go over that again. But if you go to Ezekiel, Ezekiel's interpretation seems to suggest child sacrifice. Some commentators have noted that it's possible that the original form of the text did call for child sacrifice, and there have been entire books written on this. In fact, there was a guy that wrote his PhD dissertation on this topic. So it is possible
And what conclusion did he come to?
that originally it was talking about child sacrifice.
Oh. Mm.
But there's room for discussion on all these things. You know what I mean?
Or maybe it was obvious that God wasn't talking about child sacrifice because he's God, and therefore you don't have to write that in.
Maybe.
That's what it is.
Sure. If you bring that assumption to the text.
I'll bring whatever assumption I need.
Because the interesting point here is this says, your firstborn sons you shall give to me. And then the very next thing, it says, and the same with the oxen. What do you mean the same with your oxen? So if you're doing the same thing with the oxen that you're doing with the children, certainly you're not circumcising the oxen.
No.
Right?
No, they're not going to like that.
It seems to be lumping the firstborn son in with the animals.
Yeah.
Now, it's possible that it was just worded badly, poorly
Yeah.
written, poorly communicated.
I wonder what the message says about this, actually. Because they wouldn't say that. You know what I mean? They'd say something good, right?
I'm sure Eugene Peterson tried to soften that.
Let's see. This is Exodus 22. 29 and 30, okay?
Yeah.
This is good. Good to know what different versions say.
It's not a version. I don't know how many times I've covered this. The message is not a translation of the Bible.
So it says dedicate your firstborns.
Right.
To me.
Sure does.
No, that's what it says.
The message, yeah.
Right.
Not in reality.
So, well, it's reality is right here. But anyhow, yeah, I don't know. It's yeah.
Neither here nor there.
I mean, it was there, but okay.
It is there. It is in the text.
And it might even be here if we got some crazy people.
I bet if you grab the commentary off the shelf by Eugene Carpenter behind you that covers Exodus 22, he's conservative, but I bet he engages some extra biblical literature on this. My guess is he addresses this. He's not one to want to ignore passages.
Yeah, but if he does, we're gonna send him a letter.
Well, he's dead now. Peace be upon him.
Well, we'll find a sorcerer.
He died doing what he loved, at least. He died fly fishing.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like reading the Bible or something.
No, well, he loved that too.
Know.
He loved that too. But no, he died fly fishing.
Heart attack?
No, actually slipped. Fly fishing and hit his head on a rock and
oh man,
passed out and drowned. Not a pretty sight. Oh, he's actually reordered it. He's got Exodus 24 after Exodus 20. Wonder why he did that. He must have ordered it in. He must have picked a different ordering for his commentary. Let me see. I've seen this before, where the commentators will reorder some of Exodus in the way that they think it was probably given. Let's see. Yep. 7. Okay. He's got a whole chapter on did Moses even exist, which is interesting.
Yeah, you've read this, right?
This whole commentary?
Yeah.
No, actually. I went to school with him. He was one of my teachers, but I actually haven't.
Well, I was just wondering if you could tell me if.
No, he's got it in the right order.
If he decided Moses existed or not.
I can read it.
Maybe the last sentence sums it up.
So in verse 29 says, this categorical instruction reiterates some of the instructions given earlier, namely chapter 12. That's where we talked about the firstborn the first time, 12 and 13. It says, the Exodus and the 10th plague are tied intimately to this law and serve as its motive clause. It was easy for Israel to keep the best for herself and give the rest to Yahweh. Yahweh instructs them to give the first of his share as an offering before they filled their own storage bins. Yahweh, he didn't actually talk about the children being sacrificed. He ignored it. Eugene Carpenter, just disappointing that you didn't actually address the difficult part of this passage.
He must have known it was going to be
Apparently he didn't want to touch on it. Usually he does.
Oh, I know you can't speak ill of the dead. I don't actually believe that. All right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you were bad, I mean, like Rush Limbaugh,
Well, yeah.
He was terrible in our life, and, At least he's grown flowers around
He smelled bad when he was alive and smells even worse as a dead man.
it. Yeah, he sucked.
Yeah.
And nobody even talks about it. Can you imagine that? You spend your whole life being angry and then you die and nobody says anything about you ever again.
Mhm.
And what a legacy, huh?
Yeah.
Legacy.
Yep.
All right.
All right, yeah. Don't kill your firstborn though. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't follow that law. Last one, eh?
Yeah. You shall be consecrated to me. Therefore you shall not eat any flesh that is torn by beasts in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. Because, screw the dog.
Yeah. This kind of seems like the very first law. One of the first laws pertaining to cleanliness.
Because I figured it was just another way of saying don't eat stuff with blood in them, but
Well, there was a way to get rid of the blood, but my reading of this is to not eat defiled meat.
yeah, because defiled.
Well,
What's that mean?
dirty, unclean,
Oh,
unsanitary.
because I was just thinking, why can't you eat dead stuff you find in the field? I mean, I know it's all probably full of harmful bacteria and maggots, but I don't know. It didn't seem like it was for health reasons,
Yeah.
I assumed it was more of an unclean.
Well, that is the thing with a lot of the clean and unclean laws of the Bible. You have to remember that they were they kind of originated because when people did them, they either got sick or they died.
Consecrated to me.
Yeah.
That suggests the dead animals are unclean, right?
Wait, what?
You shall be consecrated to me because
The
consecrated.
people will be consecrated.
Right.
Right.
But if you deal with these animals, you can't be consecrated to me.
Because they'll defile you, yeah.
Right, yeah. So that means they are unclean,
Yeah.
is the way I looked at it. I don't know.
No, you're right. I'm just saying that their idea of unclean was also like one of the ways that people determined what was clean and unclean was by what happened to people after they consumed it.
Mm.
Or sometimes by visual inspection. A lot of people think that one of the reasons why pork was outlawed was because it was kind of a hairless animal, and you can see its skin if it had a skin disease or an infection or something. You can see it visibly.
Oh.
Whereas with like a sheep, you really couldn't.
I thought you were going to say because you can watch everything it eats. And so if it's garbage animal, eat it.
Well, there is some people that speculate that maybe because it was a scavenger animal that was why it was
That's
outlawed.
why I said a garbage animal. That's like the same thing.
It is the same thing. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't eat goats.
Well, I don't know how proven that theory is. I'm familiar with it, and a lot of us are familiar with it. We've heard that before, but I don't know if there's any ancient backing for that. It could or could not be true. I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
The Egyptians actually do have an explanation for why they don't eat pork.
Okay.
I forget the name of it, but they actually did come up with like a mythological explanation, and I don't remember the mythological explanation, but I remember the ending of it. The ending of it was basically one of the Egyptian gods decided that it was just unclean. Because it had some sort of an eye infection or it did something terrible and became infected, and then he was so mad at the pig that he said no one's gonna eat it ever again.
It's funny. A lot of those gods were like they had the heads of like eagles.
Yeah.
And I bet you were still able to eat birds, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems weird.
Mhm.
Like someone was like half lion or something, and nobody ever said don't eat a lion.
I don't know if they could eat lions. They didn't have hooves, so probably.
The hooves are bad.
Wow, yeah, we'll get there. It's in Leviticus.
Oh, okay. Another couple of years.
It's the next book.
Oh, is it
After
really?
Exodus.
Yay.
So we're gonna get there in like another 15 chapters or so.
Yeah.
14.
I was waiting for you to
16.
tell me how long that would be.
I think it was like 38 chapters or 39 chapters in Exodus. Something like that. There's a lot of chapters.
Yeah, there's many.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, any concluding thoughts for the exciting round of laws in chapter 22?
Only that I'm looking forward to chapter 23 and even more laws.
It's only going to get better from here. We're going to learn about the tabernacle and the priests, and it's going to be all kinds of fun.
And next week's is only like 16 verses, so maybe we can do like 2 of them.
2 verses?
2 chapters.
Well, how long is the next chapter after that?
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Well, it does kind of matter. If one chapter's got 16 verses and the other one has 50, obviously we're not going to combine.
Just check it out right now. Check it out right now. Check it out. Check it out.
All right, let's see what we got. So we want Exodus 24. Yeah, it's actually short too. Yeah, we probably could combine them.
All right, what about number 25?
Well, we're not doing 3 chapters.
Well, it depends on 245.
Oops. Yep. Definitely not doing 2 chapters.
Okay, well then let's do 23 and 24 next week.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll come over at like 4:30 or something.
Well, I'll be working at 4:30. You know this.
All right, I'll come over at 5:30.
6:30 normal time.
Fine.
All right, I'm glad we can make a compromise.
Yeah.
Didn't even cost you your firstborn.
I don't have one, so that works out.
It does. All right. Well, I guess that's it for the week. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Do you?
Thank you to our special guest, Mr. Chet Cheddarson.
Yeah, Cheddarson. Good to have you, buddy. Good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well, and we'll see you again next week, guys.
Oh, well, thanks, buddy. Look what he said.
Oh, I'll be here at 4:30, Dan. Fine, I understand. I know who the star of the show is.